all anyone ever wants is their players to play for the best they can for that club wearing that shirt, and it's great. You know what it's like when it's great at a club and there's a good vibe and everyone's playing. It's the best feeling.
Welcome back to the Lose to Win podcast with myself, Josh, Jack and Ben, all three here still. Second week back in the new year. Good sign. Good sign.
It is a good sign. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. But before we start, I'd like to be referred to as the fastest fat man in Bournemouth, please. That's all I'm allowed to be referred to. It's not anything else. Until your hand heals, I'm the fastest fat man in Bournemouth. And even then, I think it's going to be hard to beat me. So how was it? Obviously, referring to our karting session on Sunday night. It was great fun.
That was a win.
I certainly did. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I did have a home advantage as I've done a couple of sessions there already. But yeah, it's great fun, and it certainly brings out, as most things that I do, bring out the competitive side of me.
Unsurprising.
But yeah, it was really good fun. I think the guys enjoyed it. I think after session one, we got a bit of a telling off because I think not just us, there was a few people that were a little bit novice to it and were very hard on the brakes, making them spin on corners rather than go round corners smoother, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the boss man actually come down and said, good session, but there's lots to improve on the first one. And it's like, all of you are using your brakes too much. And I turned around and I gave my secret away quite quickly. I turned around to our lot. I was like, I don't even use the brakes. I don't touch the brakes. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, literally do not touch the brakes, because I'm heavy enough to slow myself down, take my foot off, slam left or right, and then accelerate again and slide around the corners. And they're like, okay. But yeah, it was great fun. Really, really good fun. I think Josh was obviously missed, and Adam unfortunately had hurt his neck, so his spot was taken back by Jimmy, as Jimmy surrendered his spot after thinking that he'd been sniped the night before or Friday night.
Did you see it? No, you weren't there. You weren't there, Josh. I've got to tell you, mate, honestly, because he went down. It was towards the end of the game, and there was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes left, maybe.
Was he in goal? Sorry.
He was in goal, yeah. And the ball came over the top, and he had to put the ball over the top, so he had to tip it over there. Anyway, he stretched, and he did something to his leg, and honestly, the noise and the anguish and the hubbub that came off the result of it, I was sure he'd popped his calf, and you know what I'm like, and my experience of doing my calf, so I know what it's like. Yeah. He was just screaming and moaning. He couldn't walk, and so I got the cold spray and I got my calf support, and we carried him off the pitch. And they stopped. Alex called full time on the game because there was no point in finishing it off because of the time it took. And it was all a bit of a hubbub. And Bill had to drive his car home because we were worried about him driving. And then literally the next day, he gives it all. Oh, I've made a miraculous recovery. What you're telling me is you just had a bit of cramp. Is that basically it?
I would suggest it's harsh doing the whole "is the boy that cried wolf," because we've seen the injuries that Jim does to himself. He definitely knows how to hurt himself, doesn't he? But
you can't take it for granted if someone does that. You know, at the end of the day.
No, absolutely not. No, it was comical when as soon as you popped up, going, "Sorry, what? What the fuck?" It was quite amusing when I saw that pop up. And I messaged him privately saying, I'm so sorry, because my mate took the spot off him because my mate wanted to come and it was sold out. Yeah. And my mate ended up taking the spot off him, and he ended up getting one back from Adam anyway. So it went full circle.
Yeah. But I'm glad that he isn't injured because that would have meant I'd have probably had to go in goal this week at least. So happy days. He will be there on Friday. So
that's been a while, isn't it, Ben, since you donned the gloves?
Well, I did it at the end. I did it the last game of last season to give Jim a run out.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Against Whites, quite enjoyed it actually. He made a few good saves as well.
Yeah, he used to be an absolute cat. Been a while, like I say, it's been a while since I remember seeing you.
Yeah, been a while since it's been a cat, is what you say.
Thanks, mate.
It's the getting down and not getting back up, and
that's right. That's the problem.
It was great fun, really, really good fun, and I'm hoping I'll keep an eye out for, because it was a really good deal. It was like 29 quid for 45 minutes worth of track time in the end. And normally it's the flip; it's 45 quid for half an hour. Yeah. So I'll keep an eye out for some deals and whatever else comes up, and hopefully we might be able to get a full track of them VF lads. That'll be a laugh.
How many people can do it in one hit?
14.
14. I should be able to do that.
Yeah, and, even if it's like 10, it's gonna be dominated by it, isn't it?
chaos.
Yeah, it would be chaos. That's
So,
the
Josh,
word I
you
was
could
looking
go
for.
because of your hand, right? So how's your hand doing?
Yeah, it's okay. It's not too bad actually. I can kind of move it pretty normally now. It does look like I've got a nice tan on my right arm because the bruise is spread out the entirety of my hand and up to like halfway up my arm.
Nice.
So
That's a trucker's tan, isn't it? On the
yeah,
right arm?
yeah. But yeah, it's all right, not too bad. I kind of can move it pretty normally now without any real problems, but I will need to strap it up, so I should be okay to play so long as I'm careful.
All
And I
right.
do mean careful.
Boo, is against us.
Are you playing
You're
Blues?
right.
Yes, mate, they'll
Yes.
target you. I'm telling you, there'll be people going on that.
I'll tell you what, if anyone does do that, though, I'm going to be livid because they.
You're lucky Luke's not playing.
Luke will be straight in there.
I'm going to find some strapping on it and find something to pad it a little bit that can't hurt anyone, and we'll just go from there.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. So just got to stop waving my hands about and trying to get past people.
Yeah.
50-50 challenges aren't going to be quite so 50-50. I think let's just say I think they'll be 100% to the opposition.
Yeah, probably safe to do so, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, to be honest. Even in a week, it's not been long, is it? Even in a week, I've kind of missed it, just. But I came down briefly last night, you guys, Tuesday night.
Yeah, you're only there very briefly. From what
I was genuinely just passing by. I know I said this about the karting as well because I came along and watched some of that. But it just so happens I was driving past both things at the same time that you were doing things, so I figured I'd pop in.
Are you going to give tomorrow night a go?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
At least then, if you find it is really bad, you can do something about it or avoid playing maybe. But yeah. Fingers crossed, it's not too bad for you, mate. I'm sure you'll be okay.
It's a hand, isn't it? It's not like it's the most crucial. Well, it's a crucial body part, but not when you're playing football per se.
Especially your right hand. You're right-handed, right?
I'm left-handed.
Oh, okay. Happy days, and there you go. No problem.
Well, it's weird. I write left-handed, other things left-handed, but I don't do. I think the racket sports and things like all right-handed, darts right-handed, anything like that, basically right-handed. So it's a bit of a weird one, really.
So I'm left-handed, but I play golf right-handed. Everything else is left-handed.
I would do that as well. Yeah.
The only reason why golf is because my dad used to take us when we were younger, and it was literally just pick up his club and swing. So I was only ever taught with right-handed clubs. So yeah, that made the difference.
Yeah. Anyway, that's an interesting conversation which we should digress from.
Sorry if we've bored you already.
If anyone was interested,
if anybody's still listening,
everyone's switched off now. This is shite.
So the roundup then, I guess.
Go on, let's have it.
And we're back, I guess.
Back.
Kind of. After last week's lurch into the post-Christmas pothole, once again motoring down the highway to Well. This is Steve's writing, so
I'm
going to go from there. Highway to Well, with no plans to stop until we arrive at Slim City. So a club total of 38.5 kilos was lost this week. More importantly, 56 different people, more than 2/3 of those attending, stepped onto the scales lighter than the previous weigh-in, which is a good showing across the week.
Nice.
We'll come to some individual success stories later, but first the match results. So Jack's Blues, you won 11-5 against the Oranges.
Very good.
The Reds won 6-4 against us Yellows. The Greens lost 11-9 against the Blacks.
Gosh.
And the first draw of the season, if I'm correct.
Surprise.
The Purples and the Whites, 8-all it was.
Yeah.
So two sides extended 100% main league records, with the Blues and the Reds sharing the lead on 4 points, with champions Purples just behind them on 3 points. Purples and Reds have 100% records on the Scales League, just 1 point ahead of Blues and Oranges, while Greens, unlucky to still be on 0 in the main league, are the only side with a 100% pitch record.
Yeah, I was going to say they managed to beat the Blacks.
Yep.
Yeah. 7 out of the 8 teams enjoy collective losses, with the one outlier narrowly missing out on giving us the clean sweep. So the Oranges were the biggest losers, shedding a total of 13.5 kilos this week.
Good lads.
They were also among the biggest gainers last week, making a doubly impressive turnaround. So this week's chasing pack is made up of Blues, Blacks, Whites and Greens, who all lost 6 point something or 5 point something, basically.
Cool.
So pretty good going there.
Yeah.
It's still too soon for hat-tricks, but we are poised for their return this coming week.
Mm.
That should be interesting. There is a milestone to celebrate, though, and it's a match-winning one. So Oscar Selic-Pili and his 10%, having lost 18.6 kilos since joining the club. His 3-goal bonus turned a narrow black defeat into a 2-goal win against the luckless Greens. So very well done, mate.
Yeah, well done, mate.
Very well
really
done.
Good.
Yeah, I should say, by the way, I bumped into him last night just as I was heading into an eatery, I should say, which was always one of these things where you just go, I'm not going in here, Oz, I'm not going in here. I swear I'm not going in here.
Oh, God, I'm in here.
Yeah.
Is it that Spider-Man meme when you're like pointing at each other like,
well, he wasn't. He was a good man. He was walking past them. I was just
you were the naughty one.
I was a naughty one, yeah. Wasn't so bad though. I checked it all off and tracked it. Don't worry.
Good,
It's all good. Anyway, so 22 players went out of last man standing, with 9 more using their grace weeks to survive. There are 67 players still in, including new signing Paul Sahota on the Whites, who are welcome to the club, Paul, by the way. I'm assuming he's a member this week too, who's just started, as I'm not familiar with that name yet. So
he started last week,
Yeah, so it's a long way to go before we start handing out our survivor goals. Everyone who reaches the last 30 will score a goal, with the last 15 getting a goal every week, essentially, for as long as they stay in. So anyone with a perfect record of losses from week 2 to week 5 will then score at the end of that period. So week 5. And that also coincides with our first
belt,
essentially, the
way.
way
You're going
to
to update us on this. Have you got some figures?
I do, I think. I will have to grab them up because I have laid that out. So every week I'm going to update it anyway.
Yeah.
The only reason why I didn't update the main group this week is because I figured it would be relatively easy 1 week in for people to kind of know who was there. Although they don't know what weight category they're in per se.
No.
So that's always an interesting one. Yeah. So I will update that in a bit.
Yeah. I guess if anybody wants to know what their weight category is, they could probably ask you, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I can lay it out pretty simply. Yeah, so essentially, anyone who was under 90 kilos from week 2. So when they weighed in on week 1, anyone who was 90 kilos or less would be lightweight. Anyone between 90 kilos and 110 kilos would be middleweight, and anyone over 110 would be heavyweight. Essentially, nice. I have been asked. I was actually asked by a couple of people how I was going to do that, and we just, as we said, we kind of just decided that a flat weight category is probably just the fairest way to do it.
Yeah.
Also, there's a pretty even spread in numbers of people in each category, so that works out quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, it makes it fairer for everyone, doesn't it? Really, to get a chance. Yeah. It's unfair to expect someone who's 80 kilos to compete with someone like Josh Buxton, to try to win a belt. Let's be honest. Yeah. Or in fact, it's unfair for anyone to be competing against Josh Buxton to win a belt. But we'll, as we do. I'm not even sure if I'll expect to see his name because I haven't actually read this full report yet.
Have you not?
Okay. No.
This is good then. This is all new to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed it. I must have just kind of skimmed over it.
Well, you weren't
weekend.
Anyway, that's how it is, Ben. He's not there. Don't give a shit.
Yeah, no, he's not interested.
Noted.
Anyway, team of the week is dominated by the Oranges, so who take up 4 of the 7 places, including the entire top 3. So Gareth Hensby leads the way with a 3.4 kilo loss, edging out teammate James Scott. Yeah, essentially. I haven't actually asked him, but edging out teammate James Scott on 3.3 kilos.
Scotty.
Yeah, makes a welcome return. So it is as follows. Gareth Hensby, as I said, 3.4. James Scott with 3.3. Adam White lost 2.6.
Well done, Ed. Yeah, he definitely put a load on.
Yeah. Rob Hodge lost 2.4 kilos. Jordan Hayter lost 2.3 kilos. Michael Pearson lost 2.1 kilos. And George Geimer lost 1.9 kilos.
Well done, lads. Well done.
So 38.5 kilos is a fantastic total for the week, but it still leaves us a long way from getting our season back to 0. If we can keep repeating that performance, we'll be back in profit in week 5. But those kind of losses possibly aren't sustainable over a prolonged period. If we lose 20 kilos a week, we'll be there by week 7. So here's the challenge. Can we clear up the Christmas carnage by week 6?
You'd like to think so.
Over to us.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I
so.
reckon my prediction would be this week, tomorrow, this coming Friday, will be the biggest one yet. I reckon it'll be bigger than last week's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think this is the one that those good habits are now 14 days in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's tough to get back in on it, isn't it?
I was
Isn't it
about to
just
say,
about
how
this?
are you finding it, guys? Because I'll freely admit, and I've said this to you guys, I think on the last pod, up to basically the Friday 10th when we weighed in the first time, I was kind of like,
Yeah, it's that psychology in it of not weighing in.
I was iffy. You know, I wasn't bad actually. It wasn't anywhere near as bad as the week of Christmas, but I could have done better. You know, simply put, if I'd put my mind to it. After that, I've been pretty good. To be fair, I've managed to get back into routine, but it is taken a little bit longer than I hoped to.
Yeah.
In reality, it's taken a little bit longer to stop myself from picking up a biscuit or picking up a, you know, or when I'm out, I'll buy a hot chocolate instead of something else, you know, you know, whatever it is. Or so it's small things like that that's kind of just
definitely.
And I've started to stop myself now.
It's one of those things, isn't it, that the longer you do that for, the harder it gets. So for me, for example, I'll tell you, I did say I was expecting to have a bit of a gain, having not weighed in for like 4 weeks and having stuff going on over Christmas. Well, I did. My gain was 5.1 kilos.
Fair enough.
Which was a bit of a shock. I knew it was going to be. I knew it was going to be a lot.
It's impressive,
but that was quite a lot. But if I think about it, it was basically a 4-week period from when I last weighed in to when I weighed in, and for that 4-week period, I was in. For the first couple of weeks, certainly I was in full Christmas mode, but then the last few weeks have been dealing with other stuff, so I've not had the chance. But then again, saying what we're saying about not having that weighing, not having the sort of responsibility of weighing in on the Friday, it goes to the back of your head. So it's like, well, it's okay because I'm not weighing in this week, so it doesn't matter. And you lose that sort of accountability, don't you? So so I'm hoping this week will be a decent week, but I have been, properly back on it this week, and I feel much better. It's weird. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I feel much better by eating better.
Yeah.
Over Christmas, it's great to eat all the chocolate and biscuits and cakes and have beers every day and wine and whatnot and blah blah blah. But you do start to feel really sluggish, and you start to
groggy,
feel sort
exactly,
of groggy. And I've been back on the salads and properly calorie counting since to be fair, since last week. So I'm halfway through the second week, but I feel so much better. I feel more energized. I feel more awake. I don't have that sluggishness. So I've really noticed the difference, to be honest. And it has taken longer to, like you say, to not pick up an extra biscuit and not have a little nibble of something that I shouldn't be nibbling on. But back in the swing of it now. So hoping for a decent loss this week.
Good stuff. Yeah, well, I completely agree with you. And this week in particular for me has been one of those challenging weeks of work where tonight I'm in Peterborough. Earlier in the week, I can't even think that's what we're only Thursday, we're only Wednesday, and I can't think of where I was. But I've stayed away a couple of nights. That was it in Dartford on Monday night, and it's just not having the control of what I'm cooking and being on the road so much. It's just too easy to snack on crap. I get a meal deal instead of having something sensible. It's one of those things, but I'm hoping that even if I can just record a loss this week, I can then use that again, start again, and know that even on a tough week, I've still managed to lose weight. I know that I can do better either way. So it's old habits die hard, and the old habits at the moment for me are not good habits, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It is difficult, isn't it? We all really difficult. Trust me.
That's why
exactly. I was just sitting there the other day thinking to myself, I could do with something sweet. And to be honest, that's not something that I actually really felt over Christmas. but I just did it anyway because I had access to things like Choppy and various other
Yeah.
things. Then I get the other side of Christmas when I'm trying not to do that,
And you want it.
and I want to, and I just like, and it's not easy. It is not easy to stop yourself sometimes. Although to be fair, I've just kind of just stopped buying it. Just
That's the
just stopped
kicker.
buying
That's the
it,
key,
just
man.
without in it.
Just
Yeah,
don't buy it,
just
and then you
not
can't eat
bothered.
it.
But then
Yeah.
it's like, do I have the term? Am I that bothered about it that I'm going to go to the shop? Can I go out of my way to go to the shop to get something? And then I've got to stop myself from doing that.
Do you know what my favourites are? It's when you're doing it and you're actively saying to yourself, "You shouldn't be doing this. I'm not going to do this. Why am I doing this?" But yet you still do it.
Yeah.
You're still shoveling that biscuit, and you're going, "I shouldn't be having this biscuit." And you're in the conversation in your head is going, "What are you doing, mate? You don't need to be doing that." But you're physically just doing it anyway.
A guilty pleasure.
I have these full-on conversations with myself. I'm going, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
As you pick the multi-bag of crisps off the shelf, why is this going in the basket?
Yeah. I know I shouldn't be having these.
Yeah. Oh no, I've now gone past the freezer section. It's too far to turn back now and put it back on the shelf. I'll just take it to the till.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just make sure I only have one packet of crisps a day. And then the next day you go, well, I've gone through 12 packs. What am I going to do now?
Go and get some more.
No, but it's like, it's an exaggeration, but I get it's difficult, man. It's difficult.
But you're right. Going back to getting out of the habit of doing it, so it just proves that if you do get out of the habit of doing good stuff and eating good stuff, and you start to get back into those bad habits, it takes over, and it's difficult to get back out of it again. So, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. So anyone who's struggling with the same sort of thing, at least we know that keep going, and you'll get back on the wagon properly soon enough, I'm sure. And it's a difficult month as well. January is a difficult month, isn't it? It's not February's dark and miserable. And
well, we were just saying the Maybe Chatler was saying it was just Blue Monday.
Yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
Last week. Which and it's Blue Monday for a reason, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be honest now. I think most people can't put their finger on the reason, but it was there for a reason. And while I'll freely say I'm not potentially the best qualified to discuss the effects of Blue Monday, I imagine there's an element of that creeps into everyone's lives that then affects their eating and things like this, because you've had most people have had a celebratory Christmas. You come to the other side and you get back into the routine of things. Sometimes people don't enjoy those routines, and alas, you're 2 weeks in and it's reach for that biscuit because I need this to just I've had a tough 2 weeks kind of thing, which is always
Yeah. I guess with the colds and horrible shit going around as well, I've been in and out of having a cough and a sore throat different times of the day, which was weird, but for about 3 weeks. And it's just been very odd, very, very strange. But I know there's some proper nasty stuff going around, and then it's the whole waiting for paydays and it's scratching around, desperate for payday situation as well. I think one thing I've noticed, I get paid on the 15th, so I haven't experienced it at the same time, if that makes sense. And we're normally pretty good with it, but we overindulged and spent too much over Christmas, as often happens.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, can we eke out what we've got in the cupboard to not do another food shop this week and all those sorts of things? It all just adds up, doesn't it? And our fucking beautiful weather doesn't help either. Thankfully, it's only just been a bit grey and horrible at the moment. I know there's a bit of a storm on its way in. But it's all just adds up together, doesn't it? And the lack of vitamin D is a big thing as well.
Definitely.
Well, most people are vitamin D deficient.
Yeah.
Most people are, especially in the UK.
Yeah. When the kids are older and they can look after themselves, I've always said to Lise, we'll be disappearing after Christmas, go to a week and lay by a pool in the sun for a week.
Yeah, man. My mate does it every year. He goes, finishes Panto like first week of January, and he's off. They go to Mexico every year.
Yeah.
For like 2 weeks, just off. See you later. Enjoy a bit of winter sun. Wish I could do that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's difficult for people to fit that kind of thing in their lives, and not even just fit it in time wise. It's financially. It's not. It's not an easy thing. It escapes most people to be able to do it, especially as we were just discussing, New Year.
Yeah,
it's the most difficult time to do it.
Yeah.
So I've got time to take in March. I'm considering doing something similar.
Oh yeah.
Go away for a week.
No Vegas trip this year.
No.
No.
It's so inexpensive, man. It's expensive.
It is when you bust into casinos every day.
Yeah.
I think we might have lost old Jackass.
What happened there?
He vanished. His hotel Wi-Fi's run out. He's not paid it up. He's used up too much bandwidth.
Yeah. God.
Hello.
He's there.
It's all
There
those,
he is.
there he is. Yeah.
What are you
It's all
doing?
those,
What are you trying to download on the hotel?
You went
Wi-Fi.
robotic, and then it cut. And I think I'll leave the camera off for now because that
You vanished,
that
mate.
might be eating up the bandwidth. The problem is that this is peak time. People logging into the Wi-Fi at the hotel, watching TV and streaming and doing whatever they may be getting up to in their rooms on the internet. So it's
This is why he turned his camera off.
So it's peak time. Exactly, yeah. Bandwidth is being eaten up. So sorry, apologies.
I'll have to keep this in. I think I'll keep this in.
Keep it
Yeah, do
forwarding.
Yeah.
Rambles.
Oh no. Anyway, yeah. So no Vegas, Ben.
Oh.
And so no Vegas.
Shame.
It's
So
just
what are you
expensive.
thinking? March, bit of winter sun. what are
Well,
you thinking?
yeah,
Ooh.
nowhere like super expensive, but it'd just be nice to get somewhere slightly warmer. So, I mean, I love like places like
Tenerife is a good
Barcelona.
shout.
Barcelona, I've been to Barcelona quite a bit, and I
Okay.
love that place. I love that city.
Mhm.
So somewhere like that might not be too madly expensive. Tenerife, obviously, will be lovely. But I'm sure
Yeah.
the more exotic I go, the more expensive it gets, which is why I was thinking somewhere a little bit less, maybe a little less
Alicante
exotic, a
and
little bit more.
Valencia,
Yeah.
mate. That's what I would recommend.
Valencia, I've been there. I love that place as well.
A couple of hours flight from Bournemouth. You
Yeah,
can't
it's
go
close,
wrong,
isn't it?
mate.
Close.
We've obviously got our little golf trip booked up. James and
Ian's
Reffy
going, isn't
and
he?
my mate Kieran. We're going in September, and honestly, we're not doing a family holiday this year per se, mainly because of the cost of it, but also the cost of two dogs needing to be looked after.
Yeah, man.
We can't afford to do it every year, so I've certainly got something to look forward to, and hopefully me and Lise might be able to sneak away for a weekend somewhere, even if it is somewhere like Alicante, just jumping on the plane and going on a Friday night and coming back on a Sunday evening, pull some favours with the family for some childcare and just enjoy a bit of sun. That'd be nice. It's always
Nice.
I find I've always lived by I have to have something booked in. I always need something to look forward to. And that helps me in the dark times and the difficult times with work situation, whatever else may be going on. You go, do you know what? Ride this out, and it's only 2 months until you go. Ride this difficult period out. It's only a month until you go. Look forward to that moment and enjoy that moment. And unfortunately, going off a little bit tangent as well. Unfortunately, the last trip to Alicante last September was cut dramatically short as Kieran, who I go with's dog, became very ill, and we actually flew back early. So I'd spent the year. Granted, we did have a family sun holiday in Tenerife as well, so I can't grumble too much. But I spent the year looking forward to drinking beer with my buddy, playing shit golf in the sun, and we played one round and flew back home again.
Fine.
So
yeah, that's hard.
yeah, it's tough times, but yeah, I can't complain too much. First world problems, definitely, but it's always nice to have something to look forward to, even if it's a trip away or to do something in it.
Oh yeah, but you say this because of Vegas last year when I went. Yeah, that was June, so that was, you know, guys, it was just after the awards.
Yeah.
That was the
Literally.
lightest. That is the lightest I have been
What,
since
when
I
you
joined
went to
Manby Pat,
Vegas?
just before I went.
And then since you came back?
Since I come back, I'm nowhere near as light as that. I mean, I've put on weight basically.
The Vegas
but
effect.
I genuinely think the effect of knowing that was coming, knowing it's going to be a little big one, but also knowing something to look forward to, that whole season before I went, with it just getting closer and closer and closer, you know, 2 months away, you know, 3 months away, 2 months away, 1 month away, etc. Genuinely, it's the best I've done at Manby Fat.
Knowing it's looming.
Yeah, in terms of my weight.
Yeah.
And I think
You had
part
to
of that's
fit in that bikini,
yeah.
didn't you?
Yeah, I think mate. You see my chest, mate.
But you're right. There's a psychological bit behind it. I'm sure of it. And if you can, if you're not as lucky as us to be able to book somewhere, have something like plan a camping with family, whatever it may be, that you've got something cling on to, some bit of hope that you've got a bit of time that you deserve, that you've earned.
Yeah.
And work your way towards it. It massively helps. I think I picked up that mantra from an old boss probably about 10 years ago, where he said I have to have 3 or 4 holidays booked in at the beginning of the year. If I don't, I'll go crazy. And I'm kind of like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And I kind of like, I've always aspired to get to at least have one booked in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man.
So it is important, but I appreciate it's not as easy as that for everyone.
I think it's just a small switch, isn't it? You're looking forward to something. It lightens the mood. You lighten your mood because you've got something coming, and then that makes things easier.
Yeah.
Generally, So I'm not saying it's the thing to do. I mean, let's be honest here. It's first world problems on some level, and we just the ability to be able to do it is not something that most people can do. But as you were saying, something small. Even something, just like, I'm going, like, I would have loved to have gone karting, for example. If I said to myself, my reward for losing weight this week is I get to go karting as a small thing, then, I know that would have helped me. But I've got to start doing that. And I think that's also about the football as well on the Fridays. I've started to kind of, just since I have always thought this, but I've kind of taken it more seriously since this new year. Is about the football being a reward, very much a reward for me having a good week. It's not like I won't turn up. It's just more a case of I'm almost saying to myself, if my weekend's been really, really bad and my Monday's been bad, I probably should turn around and not go on Tuesday to football. Deny myself the opportunity to play football on Tuesday. And that might not be the best way of doing it.
Self-deprecation.
But I just think to myself, I've got to have I've got to look at it like a reward. The Friday games in particular, I've got to look at it instead of focusing on it too much, because I think there has been times since I've been here where I've lost sight of the football being all about the football and weight or whatever it is. And I have done that, at times. So
I've definitely had those thoughts where you kind of gone, especially when you end up with 11 in a team and you go, oh fuck, as much as it's great to have 11 in your team, you go, oh, there's 11 in a team, I'm not going to get much football this week. How am I going to lose weight only playing 10 minutes of football? But that's not how it works at all. And I must do it. That's a thought of 2 years ago, not last week, if that makes sense. But there's that understanding of that, and it is difficult, and it is something to always keep in mind. But we are very lucky to have it as well. At the same time, I think if without it, I think we'd all be in a very different place.
Definitely. Here's one that we've been talking about in the chat. Certainly come up recently. Is we've talked about it before about if you fall off the wagon in a week for a day and then you basically screw the whole week. We've been having a conversation saying that how do people weigh themselves? Because generally speaking, because we play on a Friday night. Generally speaking, I think it's a lot of people do. They tend to have at least a day off at the weekend, whether it be the Saturday or the Sunday or both, and then get back on it Monday morning, which is fine. You've got to have a day off when you're trying to change stuff up. It's good to have you've played football, you've lost weight the week before, whatever. It's time to have a little break from that. But what happens is, or what can happen, is people weigh themselves on the Monday morning, and then they kind of go they're up because they've had a good weekend, they've enjoyed themselves, they've probably eaten something a bit more than they should have done, whatever. They weigh themselves on Monday morning, see they're up, and then psychologically go, oh, well, I've screwed it then. I might as well just not bother with this week. And then the rest of the week goes. But what we've noticed, certainly that a few of us in the purples, when we weigh ourselves, I've always been up on the Monday because of that. But if I don't notice the weight loss until either the Wednesday or the Thursday. So ultimately, the damage that you do at the weekend, it will look bad on a Monday. But the reality is, as long as you are balanced out across the week, come Thursday, Friday, you will be down. As long as you're doing what you should be doing, you will be down. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you are one of those people that's weighing yourself on the Monday morning and going, oh, Christ, I'm up, I've shagged it, and then not bother for the rest of the week and get into that horrible cycle, is that stick with it, because just because you have a day off, it's not going to derail your entire week.
Yeah.
because I know we've spoken about it before about hitting the sort of fuck it button and going, oh God, well I've wasted it. I might as well not bother this week, and then I'll put a bit on, and then I'll lose again next week, and that actually has a negative effect. So I think anyone that's having those thought processes and is doing it, either two options: don't weigh yourself on a Monday, wait till the Wednesday, or know that you will be up on the Monday and then just stay on the wagon. Don't have that sort of fatal thing of falling off it. What do you boys think?
Well,
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think we were talking about a while back. This was like summer last year, but we were discussing about how you track calories through the week. So people track calories. Some people look at it, oh, I've done this in a day, etc. And so you'll have a couple of bad days on a weekend. But really, it's about weekly.
Correct, yeah.
If you focus on the weekly total, then you could know, oh, okay, I've had 3,000 calories on a flipping Saturday. What am I doing? And then you could get 2,500, 3,000 again on a Sunday, and you're like, oh, and then obviously, as you say, you weigh yourself, you're going to be up.
Yeah.
But then if you're having 1,200 calories Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
you'll be fine.
Friday, you'll be fine if you've got it under the deficit of the week. It's just so I try to look at my calories as a weekly thing rather than a daily thing. Actually,
I think there's value in weighing yourself daily because there is fluctuations, and if you're able to do yourself daily and write it down, if you do your Monday to Friday, and you look at your average over that 5 days. That's also because all it takes is, as I think I've shared a few videos of that local PT guy that I know, and he puts up some relative stuff around not weighing yourself weekly, and it kind of goes against what we do because there's no other way really. But he explains in that all it takes is your bowel movements to be slightly off, or you to have drunk more water on that Thursday because you had a headache or something can change it that way. That Friday you go and weigh yourself, you're off, and then you do have those fuck it moments. You go, I've ruined it, what a waste, or you don't even bother turning up at all. So it's a fun old game, isn't it? And we're obviously not the only people. The people that struggle with it, it's a national thing, and it's a worldwide thing, and in a lot of places that obesity and weight is an issue for a lot of people. One thing I don't know if you two have seen, but I must have been because I've clicked on it once, but I've been bombarded with things on Instagram, TikTok, and other socials around the weight loss injection Monjaro.
Okay, I haven't, but I have heard about it, and I have been following it.
Yeah, so there seems to be. I think this is kind of like the big breakthrough one, allegedly, that the NHS, the first one that the NHS had approved. I might be wrong, so please don't take this as I'm not your doctor. Check with your doctor, all that sort of thing. But from my understanding, it's an NHS thing. One of the NHS first ones to be approved to approve it and are prescribing it.
But they reckon it's going to bankrupt the NHS.
Because how expensive it is to do it. Of course it is. There's I think 99% of the Monjaro that is being taken across the country is on privately medicated at the moment, from what I understand, where people are in the position to complete a form and be prescribed it by a clinician that's qualified to do it, if that makes sense. So you've got Newman, I think there's a few other people that I've seen advertising it.
Right.
What are both your thoughts on, without any prejudice, and if anybody is using it that listens, that we've got no concerns either way, and you'd only be taking it if it was safe to do so. So all is well in that sense. But what are both of your thoughts on it? Treading carefully without upsetting.
Well, do you know what? It's one of those things, isn't it? This is kind of like this weight loss and aging are the two most sought after, like, holy grails of, if you can cure that, then life is good. So ultimately, if there is a safe, healthy form of medication that can help people lose weight, it's got to be a good thing, right? Because the way that society is at the moment, we're morphing and going over into obesity and morbid obesity, and the percentages of people who are obese is all-time high. because of the lifestyles that people are living. So if there is something that can help people, then that's brilliant, as long as it's used properly, I think, is the key. I mean, the last thing you want is people gorging themselves, becoming huge, and then taking injections to make themselves thin again, because obviously that's going to be massively unhealthy. But for people who genuinely struggle and are continuously battling or have medical conditions that make them struggle with weight, I think it's a good thing. But it's gonna be one of those things that's gonna be potentially open to abuse, and I think it needs to be probably governed quite well, and only prescribed in sort of the right circumstances. I think it would be a problem if it becomes a sort of cosmetic thing where anyone can take it and do what I've said, which will just cause more. I would say it's probably a more mental health problem. Yeah. But
from my understanding, it's an appetite suppressant. So I think if you were in a situation to gorge and then say start using it again, I think from reading into it, I think you start on very low dosage, and you get prescribed more of it when it's proven to be working and proven that you are managing your weight as well, so you're exercising and having a correct diet. There's side effects around there's relatively tame side effects from what I understand around feeling colder than normal, a weird one, but just feeling generally quite cold at times, and I think there's also some stomach difficulties that people have come into for short periods of time while there's an adaptation to it. But I think at the same time, I think I completely agree with you, Ben. If it's able to be used safely and the right way, clearly there's people that will need it and will benefit from using it. And if we can make sure it's used properly, then why not?
Yeah. I think it's one of these things that's open to stigma in it, because it's a bit like having surgery. So if you had a gastric band or bypass or one of the various surgeries you can have, that have proven to be very effective for many people, in some ways there's stigma attached to those. But I wouldn't consider that a bad thing if you get to a stage where you feel like you're naturally struggling. I used the example before the pod when we started, and my dad won't mind me saying this, by the way, I'm sure, is that he had a gastric bypass. He'd been, very heavy for a long period of his adult life. I think his attitude towards food and the way he struggled to kind of get over essentially what is an addiction on some level has meant that he felt like he had no choice in his later adult life to have this surgery. And it was extremely effective for him in that he lost, something ridiculous, 15 stone or something silly.
Wow, bloody hell.
But it took all the weight he needed off him, etc., in terms of his fat, and it's continued to help him since, at least help him not gain any significant weight.
Well, it's probably saved his life.
So
in all fairness.
So, and to be fair, that's actually how I looked at it, especially at the time. And I'm sure he's felt that as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are other complications that you get for having that much weight on your body for a while, but I never considered it at the time. Even me, I was a bit like, are we sure? Like, is this really necessary, kind of thing? But I was still a young lad, to be honest. But for me, it's like there's no issue with it at all.
No,
really.
No.
It's helped him, as you say. It's helped to save his life. It's helped and for me, something like these injections could be very much the same for some people. It's maybe just a slightly less drastic version. Surgery is kind of permanent. You can't really, so you can't change it. That's quite more on the drastic end of the scale, but they're there for the same reasons. Whether you do it privately, electively, or whether you get it through the NHS because of, as you've mentioned, various other medical conditions or whatever it is. So that cause you to, for whatever reason, they're essentially treatments, and you've got to kind of classify obesity as I wouldn't say a disease, but you've got to classify it as a
medical condition.
Medical condition. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so these are just many different ways of doing it, but there's as I said, there's a more drastic and there's the less drastic, and
Yeah, I think it will. I think eventually, once the cost of it starts to come down, I think it will. It will probably be quite an important tool for the NHS. But I think if they tried to roll it out to all of the people who are clinically obese or morbidly obese or whoever, or who are classed as such, it will cause issues because it's so expensive at the moment. So I think it's probably one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, not really one feeling one way or the other. But I'm not, I'm not. It's like I'm not at that stage. I'm young enough, where I feel like, and I'm not heavy enough. Where I
Yeah,
feel like I can do it naturally. That's why I'm in this program. That's why this is to aid me on
yeah,
that way. But if let's just hypothetically say I was in my 50s, and I was much, much heavier than I am now, like 2 or 3 times the size I am now,
yeah,
and I've never really managed to get any weight off, would I consider that kind of thing? Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
or
I
you
think
can
it's
look at it
fair,
from a way if you're not mobile, you're not able to do, a lot of people can't or don't have the ability or the access to do physical exercise to help, or maybe they don't have the skills or the knowledge or or many other things to cook and feed themselves properly or whatever. For whatever reason, they're not able to do the sort of standard things to help, then it can be an option, and that can only be a good thing as long as there isn't someone getting incredibly rich off of you just don't want to hope. I mean, you can get the old conspiracy theorists out and say, yeah, it's McDonald's who've developed it, so they're getting rich by making you fat and then getting rich by making you thin again.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't surprise me
Well,
either.
in the US, it'll make people very, very, very rich. But
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
funny. Yeah, one thing I should, by the way, just clarify the idea on the if I was 50 and massively overweight kind of thing. That's just that's what I see my own personal thought process on if I was like that. Age and how much you weigh is irrelevant to different people. It's just it was just a reference. It wasn't in any way
It's
saying
understandable,
if
mate.
you are 50 and twice the size of me, you should consider this.
Yeah.
No.
Judgment free, mate. Judgment free, honestly. Let's get Josh out of hot water and move on, shall we? Is there any? We wanted to talk a bit of football. Is there anything else before we move on to the football?
Oh well, should I
topics?
update you on our belts first?
Yes, do it.
A bit of the thing. So just to say, for the weight loss belts, so we're only a week in. So this is currently in the lightweight category. Gareth Hensby leads the way, 3.4 kilo loss since as we said.
Yeah. It's going to take some catching to start with, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, but there'll be some big losses after Christmas. Yeah. I'm coming in for a 3 kilo loss this week.
Robbo then would be second in that list with 2.4, and then Steve Nodwell was 1.8 kilos for that lightweight category. The middleweight category, James Scott, 3.3.
Nice.
Adam White with 2.6, and Jordan Hayter, 2.3 kilos.
Nice.
There you go. And then the heavier weight category, Ryan Broadbank led the way with 1.8 kilos. Yourself, Jack, 1.2, tied with Oscar with 1.2 kilos.
Very good. Jackie's in there with a chance of getting that belt.
Yes, that'd be nice.
I'll keep up with Josh Buxton. I'm sure it'll come from somewhere.
Yeah, it was super swoop.
I don't think you'll be allowed to win your own belt though, Jack. I think
outcries. I'll forego winning it. It'll go down as the records that I won it, but very like a true gent, I'll pass it on to somebody else.
By the way, I should say, and I have said this to captains and around the league and that in general, that this obviously, in order for me to track this, it does mean me tracking everyone's weight in the league. Right. And now, if just by the way, I should just say, if anyone doesn't want me to do that, please tell me, and I will remove you from the list. Essentially, I won't look. But it's just. I assumed most people would be okay without actually asking, so that is one thing I probably should just check. So if anyone doesn't want me, or doesn't want to be involved, or doesn't want me to be checking their weight, basically, then let me know. Yes, opt out essentially. Yeah.
I think from a Man v Fat perspective, because of I don't think me and Ben would ever to see it or access it, but because of your role within the club and what you do, you have access to it, and by joining Man v Fat, you have granted Josh access to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes,
that kind of covers that side of things.
I'm just using it in a different way than originally potentially intended. So I can log in and see everyone's weight and various other stats about people. So, and that is part of my role to have access to that. But yes, I just felt like it was worth saying. That's all.
Cool.
In terms of the actual on-pitch stuff, then there were a relative flurry of goals, haven't there been? I mean, Ollie managed to score a hat-trick again this week. I think, just
I can't believe it. I was like, what the
well, that's
hell?
taken him to the top of the scoring charts. So he has 4 goals this season, 3 in one game, obviously last week. So Jordan Hayter, Dom, Rob Hodge, and Alex Jones all then have 3 goals.
Yeah.
Wow.
As well. So yourself,
2.
Jack, Martin, yourself, Martin,
2 out of 2.
Dogs, Sid, and Russ Palmer have 2 goals.
Super Russ.
Yes,
Danger
Russie.
Russ is in there.
Russie was unbelievable the other night, by the way. He scored 2 brilliant goals. He's turned into Cole Palmer, not Russ Palmer.
Good on him, mate.
Yeah, he was good. Very good.
Jordan, Dom, Matt, Martin, and John Costa and Michael Pearson all have 2 assists each. So that's the lead on that one. So for the goal involvements, that leaves Jordan and Dom at the top with 5 total goal involvements. Martin, Ollie with 4, and then John, Jack, Jogs, Rob, Alex, Rob and Alex with 3. So
2 weeks for them both to establish themselves back at the top straight away. It's crazy, isn't it? How consistent they both are with it.
We just got to make sure that we don't have. I said this on the sideline week 1. I just said I'll do anything to make sure Dom doesn't win it. But that was just a joke. Just as a joke to him. But I just honestly.
He's a very humble guy.
He carries himself so well. To be fair. He was brilliant. To be honest, the teams last night were relatively tough, and he was unbelievable last night. His close control and getting the ball off him is just impossible. He's a very, very good player.
He is.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's that then.
Great stuff. Well done, mate.
So moving on, I think obviously it's a hot topic at the moment, not just amongst ourselves, but across the country, how good AFC Bournemouth are doing. But not just AFC Bournemouth, it's there's some interesting bits of form popping up across, especially the top 2 divisions. I must admit, I don't watch a lot of anything else. So obviously there's 2 or 3 representatives of 2 very informed teams in this chat as we speak. So QPR to start with are on absolute fire. If you completely ignore the cup, which Ben, I'm sure they made plenty of changes for, did they?
They did, yeah. And he was criticised, I think, for that.
I think rightfully so. With how things are going for you in the league, I would probably stick to it. And why change a winning recipe in the league? But yeah, QPR are obviously flying. So should we start with QPR? What's changed, Ben, or what's going well?
Well, do you know what? I mean, it was a real. I think the where do we start? So when Marty came in at the middle of last season, we were really struggling. He came in and obviously did a fantastic job and managed to keep us up. And actually, we were, like we said before, one of the form teams towards the end of the season. This season, I think we expected to carry on the way that we had finished the season. And he brought in a few players, which didn't really do too much early doors. But for all intents and purposes, we had pretty much at the same side, and people expected us to crack on, but we really didn't. We weren't playing like horrifically badly. We just weren't getting results. I mean, we drew 4 of the first 6 games, and then went on a losing streak of like 4 games or something, and then just drew or lost. And we were just crap. We were bottom of the league. Everyone was going. People started to call for his head, and I was like, no, because it's there. The belief was there. They just were having a bit of bad luck, really. And then we were bottom of the league, rock bottom of the league by end of November, I think it was. And then we've just gone on this like bonkers run of form since we lost to Leeds, I think. Just having a little look. Yeah, we lost to Leeds sort of beginning of November, and then we went on this run where we drew against Stoke, and then we've just drawn 1-1, drawn 1. The only game we've lost in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games. We've lost one game.
Wow.
And that was a bit of a weird one at Swansea City, where we had a really shit half hour where they just sort of let 3 goals in the first half, but then actually sort of bossed the rest of the game. But the rest of the time, we've been playing really, really good football, and for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much the same team. We've got a few injuries where we lost Dembele, who came in, who was at Blackpool last season, who was like their player of the season last season. He came in and looked good, but he's had a long-term injury. But we've got these young players that are coming through, and we've got 2 or 3 players that have come through from our academy who've sort of gone into the first team, who are looking really good. We've made a couple of really shrewd signings. A young lad from Tottenham who had never played a senior game until he came and played for us, and he's been really, really important in our midfield. And we've got some really young, exciting players and they're just playing with real confidence. And I watched the game last night against Hull, and Keiki Sato, our little lad from Japan, he's been playing really well, and he's just not scored, but he scored a wonder goal last night, and everyone was really pleased with him. But you can see the kind of unity in the team, and the feeling around the team, and everyone's confident now that Marty's the right man for the job, and it's all going well, and it's just a really good feeling around the place. So yeah, delighted, and we're actually now up into 9th place and pushing hopefully for a playoff place come the end of the season. So yeah, happy days. Happy
Very
days.
good.
Getting ahead of
Queen's Park
yourself
Rangers
there.
camp.
Playoff, please.
I love it.
We're always over optimistic. Always got to be, mate.
Yeah,
But that's kind of the way our club is. We're either really good or really shit. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground. It's really, really strange. But they are playing really well, and they're really good to watch as well. And people are starting to talk about them now. The only thing that concerns me around that is that because we're the sort of club that we are, players start to get attention, and then if we do well this season, clubs come in for buy them cheap, and then we start again, and that unfortunately is what it's like being a small kind of smaller club, that we have to do that. That's our model.
In theory, though, Christmas and New Year is probably one of the best times to have good form, but also one of the worst.
Yeah.
Because best in terms of you've got a lot of games coming around that time, and you can move quickly like you have done.
Yeah.
But also then you've got January window where you're just like, oh God, are we going to lose players off the back of this, etc.
Yeah.
I think that's the case for any informed team, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Any team that's got full form. People are sniffing around their players. And then you just get rumours from agents about, oh, okay, we won't do January, but you've definitely given the summer. And then you just hear about, and then the back end of the season is marred with the idea you're losing 2 or 3 of your best players potentially in the summer, because when you might not be, to be honest. But sorry.
I think
put a damper on it.
No, not at all. It's fact. It's life, isn't it? But I think the thing is, actually, we're quite shrewd with our signings, and like I said, we've brought a few players through the youth system, which is brilliant. To see these boys, and they're committing their futures. They're signing contract extensions, which sees them at the club longer. And we're actually looking at other players and people, because we're playing well and we're going up the table. Players that want to go out on loan for the rest of the season, maybe at Premier clubs that are not getting game time but want to be playing, we become attractive to them to come out on loan. Just,
a perfect example of that is a player we've spoken about a couple of times, isn't it? Ronnie Edwards, who went from Peterborough to Saints. I knew about him, obviously. I've mentioned Peterborough before, and my boss, he's a massive Peterborough fan and has always banged on about how good Ronnie Edwards is.
Yeah.
He got his move to Saints and played once in the Cup, and then he disappeared. Yeah. And then out of nowhere, he popped up at QPR, and he seems to be doing very well.
Well, I mean, we've got injuries. We've got basically our central defence was crocked. Cookie, obviously, Cook was in, and he got long-term injury. Lost our other central defender, who's been a sort of mainstay there through injury. So he's come in and he's gone straight into the back line, and he's been great so far. Absolutely solid.
But he's captained England at under 19 level for a long time, and has played something like 400 Football League appearances already. And what is he, 21 maybe? 21?
Yeah.
So he's loads of experience and really good trajectory. And hopefully, Saints are obviously likely to be in a similar league to you next season. Not wishing you don't make it, but there's a good chance they're going to be in the same division as you next season.
Yeah,
You might stand a chance in nicking him off him. I think they only paid a couple of million for him, so it may be that there's an opportunity to do
player,
it.
won't it? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
But
it's good to see. It's really good to see. And I've always had a soft spot for QPR, and I always look out for the results, especially now because of you as well. And it's definitely been noticeable, isn't it?
Yeah, unreal. And do you know what? There's a really good feeling about the place, and the team, and they all seem, like I said, all anyone ever wants is their players to play for the best they can for that club wearing that shirt, and they all are, and they're all united, and it's great. When it's great, you know what it's like. When it's great at a club and there's a good vibe and everyone's playing well, it's great. It's the best feeling.
Yeah.
But I very rarely sit down and watch a match and think, we'll win this. But recently, I'm looking at us as fairly good, a fairly good bet in a lot of the games that we've been playing in, and they've proved me right, which is great. Normally, I'm overly optimistic and go, we'll win this, and then we get pumped. But no, thankfully, they've been playing really, really well. And do you know what I was saying? I was just chatting on to a few people on one of the QPR forums yesterday that. It used to be that we always had like one or two players that we rely heavily on. That's just the way it's kind of always been, and it doesn't feel like that this time. It feels like we've got half a dozen players in different positions who are all playing really, really well, and they're all playing well together. It's not like we're relying on Taarabt or Charlie Austin, or Chrissy Willock from last season, for example, or Elias Chair. We're not just focusing on one player, and there's not all that pressure on one player. That the whole team are playing really well together. So it's great to watch, and happy days. So yeah, I think our form is only one behind Leeds at the moment, I think, and if you look at the last 6 games or 10 games or something. But Oxford as well. Oxford are in a real rich vein of form, and they're flying up the table as well. So there's a few teams. There's a few teams in the Championship that are coming from mid-table. Wednesday, Coventry City under Frank Lampard have turned a corner. They're doing really well. Who did I say? Sheffield Wednesday,
Middlesbrough,
Borough doing well. It's going to be really open, and you know what the Championship is like. It's super, super close, and anyone can beat anyone on any given day. But I think
it's always exciting, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant! It's a brilliant league. I love it. But yes, good times, exciting times.
Absolutely. So on the theme of form, obviously AFC Bournemouth have captured an awful lot of attention, especially just this week.
You know what? They've started getting, for the first time that I can remember, they've started getting mainstream media attention from like even Match of the Day actually mentioned them. They
weren't the last.
It wasn't about how bad the team played that they beat. It was about how well they played.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there've been a bit of you're a religious TalkSport listener, aren't you, Jack? But I know they've been on there. They've come across their airwaves a bit this week as well. There, so
I watched the Chelsea Wolves game on Monday Night Football, and in the first 10 minutes, Bournemouth were mentioned about 7 times. Obviously, because Chelsea had played them last, and how they suggested that Chelsea nicked the draw at the end after Bournemouth playing particularly poorly in the first half of that game. Honestly, it's just a continuous. Maybe because I'm sat up noticing it more now, but you're right, Josh. It's certainly up to level, and all credit to the team. It's more. What about it is it's super impressive if you think about who they've beaten. So you've got City, Arsenal, Spurs, United, Newcastle out of the top teams that I can think that they've beaten.
Top teams, and then United in there. What?
Most people are
dubious, but we'll laugh now.
And then you've got draws with the likes of Chelsea, Villa, West Ham, the teams that you would all, if you were to go, give me a typical Premier League season, you'd expect this season, you'd expect a lot of those to finish above Bournemouth. And the results, they're not just results, they're not just wins, they're not just scrappy wins. That performance against Newcastle, which was much coveted and actually really well covered on Match Today, I actually thoroughly looked forward to watching the analysis on it to see if they thought, if get my words out.
I thought Newcastle played bad or Bournemouth played well.
Exactly.
But also I wanted to see if they thought the same as I thought, that Bournemouth were absolutely on it from the very first second. Brooks, instead of standing a player up and passing it backwards, took on arguably one of the informed defenders in the league, in Lewis Hall, and took, as a team, took on the form team in the Premier League, going for their 10th consecutive win, with a striker that was going for 8 consecutive goals. It's being coveted as the best striker in Europe at the moment, who didn't even get a shot on target. It's from front to back, and all of that aside, with 9 first-team players missing, and they're not just bench warmers that are missing. You've got players like Tavernier, you've got players like Adam Smith, who's captain. Then you've got, I always butcher his name now, Araujo, or whatever his name is, the guy that they brought from Barcelona that's meant to be a real hot prospect as a right back, also missing on a long-term injury as well. Alex Scott, who's considered an absolute wonder kid. The list is huge. 2 strikers, both strikers out as well. It is just phenomenal. And I did a bit of research today about some of the records. I know a lot of records have been covered, but some that we'll be aware of, and some of them that might catch you by surprise. So obviously that you've got obvious ones that just this season. So you've got the first player to ever win 3 penalties in one game. Then you've also got, in that same game, the first player to ever score 3 penalties in one game. You've also got Kluivert, after Kluivert's hat-trick at the weekend, which was an incredible hat-trick, by the way.
That third one,
very good
Jesus
goals.
Christ. I just, as soon as he hit it, I was like, oh, that actually might be in.
You'd be happy with a strike like that from a penalty spot, wouldn't you? Putting it, nestling it in the side netting like that from the penalty, not as far out as he did. He became only the 7th player ever, which I'm surprised by this one, to get 2 or more away Premier League hat-tricks in one season.
Wow.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, we've still got a fair amount left. Who knows what can happen? He could become the first player to get 3. There's nobody that's ever got 3.
So what's the feeling amongst the Bournemouth faithful then? Are they feeling like this is? Are they feeling confident going into games and thinking that they can win anything?
If you look at the next 2 fixtures,
time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's temperature check time. I think there is a lot of European talk. There's lots of, we're going on a European tour, get your passports ready, that sort of talk.
Love that.
I think there's a lot of, it's jovial, but there is a fair chance now, if you look at it and where things are. The next 2 games, Forest at the weekend, that could be your Saturday, that could be your Friday night, your Saturday night, your Saturday afternoon, your Monday night football. It should be a televised game. It's not. Yeah. They weren't to know that these 2 were going to be playing as well as they are and going at it as well as they both are. But it's going to be a hell of a game, an absolute hell of a game, I think, because both have very unique styles. Both are playing very well under a rigid set of tactics, a rigid formation that seems to be getting the best out of the players that they have. And then you've got Liverpool coming to Dean Court the week after. So why not dream? Why not dream? If you've beaten City, Arsenal, Spurs at Dean Court, nobody wants to come to Dean Court.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually feel like Liverpool have been so brilliant this season. Yeah, I actually feel like the Bournemouth game is one of the most difficult upcoming games, like by a long margin. Like they could lose a game. They could actually lose a game. Yeah. Maybe that's biased, but I genuinely look at anything to myself.
Well, they won't be looking forward to it, will they?
Yeah, they won't be.
Liverpool have been brilliant. There was just on a little sidetrack. There was a debate today on TalkSport about people. I think someone on TalkSport last night claimed that Liverpool have become a bit boring and a bit tedious to watch. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Disagree with that.
Yeah,
but there was kind of like some method to its theory, and the fact that if you compare it side by side with Klopp's Liverpool was organised chaos, wasn't it? It was frantic and whatever. I personally, from my perspective, as much as I want Arsenal to win the league and them not to win the league, this Liverpool for me is more likeable because the way that Slot carries himself, the way that he's more composed, the way that he seems to be almost in a position that it feels like he's under control, where the control I think felt at times Klopp, we know there was times that he lost control when he runs onto the pitch to celebrate at goal against Everton, and all these things screaming at a linesman that comes past. I don't see that happening with Slot. From my perspective, they seem a lot more likable and a lot more.
Well, it's funny you should say about the comparison.
Predictable,
Klopp,
but predictable and likely to win. Sorry, that I feel like they are like City were last season. That you felt like at any point it could be 0-0 like it was with Brentford with 5 minutes to go. There was an inevitability about them going to score.
Yeah.
And that is where they are now. Where I wouldn't have given that under the Liverpool Klopp of maybe a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny you should say about the Klopp comparison, because I actually think Bournemouth have become much more like that in his style, not in an unlikable way, because I think people see Bournemouth as quite a likable team. Let's be honest.
Although
but
they're coming everybody's second team, not just mine and yours, Josh.
But the way they play, and I think also I should just going back to that Newcastle thing. I think it was just nice to see that people praised, because a lot of times we've already said this, but how people talk about how Newcastle were poor, etc. But it was quite clear that everyone could tell that Bournemouth made them look poor. It wasn't that they were poor; it was that Bournemouth completely controlled it, dominated the game. They slapped them, really, didn't they? Like in the nicest way. They just completely dominated that game, and made Newcastle look pretty average.
Ironically, though,
I think that's what's quite exciting about it, because it's not something that's quite usual for Bournemouth to have control of a game.
But isn't it the old Eddie Howe bogey? Haven't they?
But he never
left. He's never
beaten Bournemouth.
Yeah, see, and I reckon he does that on purpose.
Yeah, I said this. I think I said this to someone the other day. Actually,
you did say to me,
Yeah, I think he said. I think he just lets them win. I think he.
What's interesting about that as well is
13
13 of the fixtures that he's played in, whether it be Newcastle against Bournemouth as coach of either team, he's only ever won 2 games of 13. So he's only ever come out victorious of that fixture twice of 13 times, which is quite an interesting one. The other thing that stood out for me is some other bits and pieces here as well. So the Bournemouth are currently on their longest, it's quite an obvious one, but longest unbeaten run in the club's Premier League history. And also they have the youngest, or on Saturday, it was the youngest defensive 4 in the Premier League for 12 years as a combined age. So how soon is that? And what's also really interesting about it, it's worth mentioning, is that the players that are coming in, your Brooks and your Dean Howson, for instance, are players that weren't getting game time. Brooks wasn't really playing a great deal, and they're down to the bare bones. And those players that have been sat waiting for their opportunity, Iriola has clearly been able to keep drip feeding them and kind of going, when your opportunity comes, I need you to be able to do this. You're on board. You train the same way as these starting 11 do. You integrate into them. You're a like-for-like replacement. And Dean Howson's been an absolute revelation, and I don't think anybody thought he was as good as he was. But Marco Senesi, who's out for a little while with quite a bad injury as well, he's incredible too. Dean Howson wouldn't have gotten the team if it wasn't for that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And he was considering, from the allegations were, or suggestions were, I should say, is that he was considering wanting to move because he wasn't getting the game time. Yeah. So it's all of the coincidental moments, everything is falling into place for them, and it all just fits nicely. And whatever happens from this point, I'm sure Bournemouth fans have thoroughly enjoyed the ride of this season. Yeah. And if you look back at it, it is Eddie Howe will always remain an absolute legend at the club, but Iriola has taken them to the next step. I think he's taken them on a next step. And I didn't know that in Eddie's break between leaving Bournemouth and taking on the Newcastle job, he spent 4 solid weeks with Iriola at Rayo Vallecano, studying what he does, how he does it. He was one of the ones that was suggested to him by Pep on who to go and watch and who to go and see actually in action coaching. And Eddie stayed with him for 4 weeks, lived with him, ate with him, everything, watched him train.
We know how massively invested he was in Bournemouth, or is in Bournemouth, he's so, I think that speaks volumes about the man, actually, about how important he felt it was to hand it over to good solid hands that were going to look after the club that he cares so much about. So kudos to him.
Yeah.
It's
One
funny
question I've got for you, Josh.
Go on.
Sorry, Josh, just quickly. Well, both of you. What's next for AFC Bournemouth? What do you see for the end of this season? If you were to kind of stake a claim into how you expect the season to finish,
realistically, or with my head or my heart?
Either, whichever is giving you the strongest vibe, mate.
I can see them. I can definitely see them continue what they're doing for another while yet, but there will be a little bit of a blip, I'm sure, at some point. In the nicest way. I know that sounds pessimistic almost, but considering how well they've done recently, but I can't imagine that we won't lose another game. Just one game between now and the end of the season. I can't imagine we'd be unbeaten in the 20, whatever. So it's just more. I suspect it'll be top half, but say 8th. I don't know if 8th is Europe nowadays.
I think it might be because they think England are likely to get 4, British teams are likely to get 5 Champions League spots, especially the English league. So
I mean, possibly. I would say 7th or 8th is a nice aim. But I suspect it between 7th, 8th, or 9th. One of those.
It's historically where they've been. Bottom half of the table finish, bottom or sort of mid-table.
Yeah, just inside the bottom half when they've had good seasons. Yeah,
they've had a couple of top halves, I think, into like 9th. I think I don't think I know well enough, but I think your probably highest was an 8th or a 9th.
They've not been relegation fodder for a while, have they? Since they came back up. They've
that's what's impressive.
Cemented.
Yeah.
So you would have to say that as one of the smaller or smallest clubs probably that are in the Premier League, they're punching above their weight massively. So I think you would have to say anywhere inside the top 8 has got to be a target.
Oh, that'd be a brilliant season. And anywhere top 8 would be absolutely incredible. I like to think top half. Yeah. I'm not going to be sit here and say if they were 10th, I'm going to be disappointed.
No.
But it's
interesting though,
considering how well they're doing at the moment and where they are. It's
there seems to be like a real sort of transition in some of the bigger teams though in the Premier League at the moment, and that's not allowing, but it's the sort of lesser clubs that are vying to be those bigger clubs are starting to come to the fore. I mean, we look at teams like Bournemouth, we look at teams like Brighton. But also, I mean, look at Forest. Forest have an unbelievable season.
I never predicted that in a million years.
I don't think many would.
Especially under Nuno as well. And that's no disrespect to Nuno, but he's had torrid times at previous clubs. And
but their management style, bringing out millions of players, and we all laughed at them. We're all going to get it ruined when they get relegated and blah, blah, blah. And then bang, all of a sudden, they're actually, they're vying for, top 3 spot, and they could well end up there. And now we're talking about a top game of the week between Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth. I mean, Christ, when was something like that spoken about in recent history? It's not.
Yeah, normal. It is worth noting that both clubs are there by merit, because you're not where you are in the league now by accident. But they both have spent a considerable amount of money. Bournemouth have been back to, they are, you say, the smallest club. But their financial spend, I think their net spend is up there in the top 6 or 7 in the league, because of the backing that they've got, because of the ownership and where things are. And from kind of all the PSR reports, that Bournemouth are in a pretty stable position with the PSR as well.
Good.
And able to do it. And they're sat on some ridiculously strong assets in terms of players like Kirkes, which feel inevitably going to go.
Yeah,
it's the model that they have. Bournemouth are signing these players knowing that they're not going to keep them forever, and they're going to turn a profit on them, and then they'll go and find the next, like Brighton are doing. That's the model that they want to follow. So Kirkes goes out the door. They've signed this Argentinian that's had to go back to Argentina for the under-20 World Cup or whatever he's playing in. Players like that, it's suggested that he'll just be a direct replacement at Kirkes and eventually be as good as him and then go as well. But if you look at the 3 of that back 4, Cook I don't think is going to be on anybody's shopping list just because of injuries and age and whatever that may be. No disrespect to him, but the rest of them, Zabani, Howson and Kirkes, are going to some of the hottest property in the league. And you could be you're sat on serious money, and you obviously don't want them to all go at once. But at the same time, I'm now starting to feel very confident about the recruitment policy
Yeah, I was going
and
to say the recruitment's been
the
fantastic.
ability to find those players again. You haven't stumbled across those three. They are three very educated and well-timed purchases. And Howson wasn't cheap. I think Howson was best part of 20 million at the age of 19.
To be honest, I'm astonished Juventus let him go. Now that you look at him, I am astonished.
Mate, have you seen who Juventus want now as well? Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah, I know.
They were like, I read a thing. They said, we really want a player in the mould of Dean Howson. Well, what, the player that you sold, Dean Howson, and now you're going to go and buy Lloyd Kelly?
Yeah. Well, that's not a quite so well-run club.
Isn't it?
Just quickly on the form thing, by the way, it's no surprise that, and you were talking about this, Jack, briefly about how you've got buy-in, because people like Brooks, who was clearly down the ladder and might have gone on loan, is going to be, he's been brilliant. It's clear people like QPR and Bournemouth, the form teams, have got buy-in from all their players, and they're on all levels, and they're clearly, that's what's making them successful. They're clearly a team unit, and so it's not really a surprise on some level.
Absolutely, there's a tightness and family feel about Bournemouth, and a lot of away fans come and take the piss about the size of the stadium and everything else. But you can't beat that feeling that you're part of it. And the further away it gets from that, and the more tourists that comes, yes, that ticks the boxes and gives the bean counters more money to count. It drives away that feeling of a club that Bournemouth will always need to have, I think, just because of the size of the town, who they are, how it's got there. You lose that feeling, you lose it quite quickly. Well, I think we definitely started to lose it under Parker and Woodgate and everybody else that had to go at it. But yeah, I just think it was well worth mentioning, and it's always been close to our hearts, especially obviously wanting to see Bournemouth do well. And yeah, just an incredible run of form, and long may it continue.
We'll have to get the lads on, Bournemouth fans, these season, the proper ones, the season ticket holders, the one who goes and sees every game, because I know I can hear them shouting at the screen, going, "You guys,
I'm sure they want something to say.
They want something to say.
You've forgotten about this person,
yeah.
I will mention as well. I think I had mentioned to you boys previously. I've got Harry's mum's very kindly sold me her season ticket to watch the Liverpool game, because Jordan's lad is going to be mascot for Liverpool, so he'll be walking out with Virgil van Dijk. He found out this weekend, and he is absolutely buzzing, which is just an incredible experience. Very lucky boy. So thanks Harry for sorting out for me. And George was able to get a few extra tickets from the club for grandparents and stuff. But keep an eye out on Match of the Day. That's my nephew walking out with Virgil van Dijk, a moment he'll never ever forget, I'm sure.
Love it. Love it.
Hey, was there anything else, boys? What else did you want to talk? Do you want to talk a bit of fancy?
I didn't have much on the fantasy, if I'm really honest. It was kind of 15 minutes of waffle last week. I figured I'd spare you a little bit this week. Basically, the only thing I have to say is remember there's a double, not this week, but the week after. Liverpool and Everton have got 2 games that week. Target Liverpool players if you're considering getting anyone.
Yeah. Basically. So I brought Diego Jota in, Josh, and he's now read muscular injury, unknown return date.
Yeah. Oh no. No. I don't know what that is, to be honest. I don't know when he's injured. If Diego Jota's is he actually red flagged? Really?
Yeah, he's red flagged, yeah.
Oh, interesting, because I was looking earlier before this in kind of slight preparation about whether I was considering he's listed as Diogo, and I hate it when they do that. Let's see. Oh yeah, he's a red flag. It's just been updated, so that gives potential more minutes to some players up the front in the attacking side of things.
I can afford to bring Diaz in, but Gakpo tends to start over him, doesn't he?
Diaz does start.
Diaz starts.
Okay.
But
Diaz has played like
Jota.
Diaz plays like 60 to 70 minutes.
Yeah.
Basically every game. In fact, one game in the last 4 he played 59. Pardon me. Yeah. So, which is not ideal because that's when you get the extra point, 60 minutes. So, and bonus comes in and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, Diogo Jota was playing like 20, 30 minutes or something, and he's obviously injured again. So
Yeah.
I think that gives more minutes to potentially to Diaz, definitely to Gakpo, I would say. Maybe Nunez, but I wouldn't really want to go near him. Basically, my players in my mind, I've got Salah, I've got Trent. Those are the two key ones in my mind. They are the most expensive, but if you already have them in your team, you definitely aren't getting rid of them, and they're probably the best people to have. If you can't afford Trent, Virgil van Dijk's a nice one.
Yeah.
And then if you had to, Konate, because he's obviously going to be nailed and cheaper.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the other option is to change your goalkeeper, so get Alisson or Pickford, but I prefer to get Alisson.
Yeah.
And then the only person I had on my list before you mentioned the Jota injury was Gakpo in terms of attacking players, just because of the rotation. But now I haven't given it enough thought, but I would think that probably Diaz would now come into my thinking more because of that. And he's a midfielder, so that's quite nice because this is a nice slot to be able to change. Gakpo is listed as a forward in FPL, so if you have someone like Isak and people like that, you want to keep them, so it's just less flexible. But yeah, so I'm definitely going to have at least 3 Liverpool, and probably I'm going to get 1 Everton player in.
Calvert-Lewin could be a good shout.
Yeah, maybe Calvert-Lewin
forward.
I mean, they did for once actually score goals at the weekend.
But this is it, yeah.
First time for ages. Well, first one.
Yes, so considering it depends just on my team personally. It's just more flexible for me to be more flexible on defenders. So, truthfully, that might mean Mikolenko or someone like that, but that's not ideal. Everton's defense are unreal, but I just their games aren't great. So their games aren't great coming up even with a double. So I don't want to be forced to play him if I had to. That's my point. So that's all I had basically. But that's next week. The only reason why I mentioned Liverpool this week is because they're playing Ipswich at home this week, and then they've got a double. So probably this week's a good week to get them
in.
Fair. Cool. Yeah. All right, boys. Well, I'm going to need to bounce because the Traitors is on and my wife is getting antsy and I need to watch it.
It is Traitors time.
We did see some background interruptions.
Did you hear me talk? I thought I muted myself. My missus is knocking on the door going, are you still recording? I want to watch the Traitors.
We saw you getting pulled out of out of shot by your headphones still on your head. One thing I do want to say, did you obviously, Ben, you tagged me that you did find it hilarious that had been cropped out of the photo of the advertisement for the who do we think that they've kind of said who do we think the guest presenter is going to be? I think it'll be Harry Redknapp. Being in the West End of London, I just get that feeling it will be
East End.
East End. Sorry, East End. I was saying West End because of fucking West Ham. East End. Yeah, I have a feeling it'll be Harry. Harry or Merson.
Could be Merce. It's usually someone that's got some affinity with men's health, isn't it?
Yeah, Merce is definitely up there with that because of the gambling side of things.
Yeah, Merce could be a good shout. They always.
I don't think they could cope with Razor again, could they?
No, I don't think it. As amusing as it was.
Yeah. Anyway, let's let you get off, mate. I'm going to watch the Traitors as well. Thank you very much for your time, boys.
Lovely.
Big up the Arsenal and City lost 4-2 to PSG. Whee! Shame Scotty weren't on.
We'll give him
he's going to miss episode 69 that we're on now, and I'm sure he's unhappy about it. I know you're listening, mate. But don't worry, we'll have you on
next week, mate.
Next week.
It can be 69A.
Yeah, if you want. 69B.
Definitely. All right, boys.
Excellent. Nice cheers, boys.
Take it easy.
Yeah. Bye bye.